In honor of Valentine's Day and the tradition of giving one another jewelry on Valentine's Day, I want to tell the story about a necklace, an important necklace from Norse mythology. And I wanted to do it in this way as kind of an experiment. I might not use the voiceover here. However, I do want to give this a shot in terms of the storytelling whole aspect of things. Now, the necklace that we're talking about is the Brisingamen, which is a necklace that was made for Freyja, the goddess Freyja. And Freyja actually has two modes of travel. One, she has a cloak of feathers that can turn her into a falcon. But her more mundane way of getting around is a chariot pulled by cats. And I'm not chasing Jiminy Christmas away from the video because she would be an excellent chariot puller, I think. She's got lots of energy and lots of strength. So though she is small, she is mighty. So I feel like in honor of Freyja, Jiminy gets to remain because she was also the patron goddess of the household cat. So before we talk about Freyja specifically, or about the necklace Brisingamen specifically, I want to talk a little bit about Freyja overall. So Freyja is a goddess who is complicated and has lots of paradoxes, which to me means that we have a more complete picture. I don't feel like we really found the full goddess until we found all of the paradoxes around her. And Freyja is one of those. She is a goddess of life and death, of fertility and abundance, as well as of loss and sorrow. She is a goddess of love and beauty, much like Aphrodite, but then she is also a goddess and harbinger of war. She's the bringer of war to mankind, and kind of in that way a combination of Aphrodite and Ares. She's the queen of the Valkyries, which makes her a psychopomp as well as a chooser of the slain, which is what the Valkyries do. And when she chooses them, half of the people who die in battle go to Valhalla, which is one of the more well-known underworlds and afterlives of the Norse mythology. However, she actually runs one called Folkvang, which is a different heaven, a different afterlife that is kind of next door to Valhalla, if you will. There are actually 5 or 6 different afterlives, depending on how you die, including one run by Ran, who's the goddess of the sea, if you die at sea. There are a number of different places you can end up depending on the circumstances of your death. And that being said, she is one of the runners of one of those afterlives. She is known and recognized in iconography by her necklace. This necklace is a key part of her story. When she does not have the necklace, she is not her full expression of herself. And there is a point in one story where Thor has to pretend to be Freyja and impersonate her dressed up in drag. And in order to do so, he has to wear this necklace as like a full part of the costume that he puts on. So the necklace is a really important element to her story. The other thing I wanted to pull in before I get going on the necklace story, though, is this rune. This rune, I don't know if you can see it here. It looks like kind of a wonky pointy F. This rune is Fehu, which is abundance, things earned, and hope and plenty. It's also just the rune for cattle. So if you were listing off your abundance, you would list your cows, and that is what you would use the Fehu for. Freyja is the goddess who brought the runes and taught the runes to other people, including Odin as well as the mankind. And she is also represented often by the Fehu rune. So this is this kind of her rune, which kind of ties to her goddess of fertility, goddess and abundance aspects. Because she's a goddess of beauty also, as well as fertility, I like to pull in some of these flower petals, which the cats are completely obsessed with. And that is a delightful kind of addition. I did add some rose essential oil onto them just to kind of smell yummy and rosy, to kind of add to the ambiance for myself as I tell this story. So one of the things about Freyja is that she travels a lot. In some of her myths, her husband, who's often called O.D., is traveling or lost, and she has to find him. And she cries tears of gold as she goes seeking him. Well, as she is traveling around in her chariot of cats, she travels from the upper world, which is where the gods live most of the time, through Midgard, which is our world, the living, waking world, down to the world of the dwarves, which is a version of an underworld or a sort of an underworld. Svartheim isn't necessarily, it's more of an other world than it is an underworld per se. Anyway, she's driving her chariot of cats. She goes and is looking in all directions to try to find her husband, and she runs into this home of these 4 dwarves. And she asks them if she can spend the night, as a traveler, to have a safe place to sleep for the evening. And they invite her in, and they say, yes, of course you can stay here. And so she is, staying at their home and then looking at what it is that they're creating on their forge. And all 4 dwarves are working on the same piece of jewelry. And it is a stunning necklace. It is a beautiful necklace, and it's not complete. And she's noticing it, and she's looking at it, and she's really wanting this necklace. And so she says, I will pay you any price for this necklace. It is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And the dwarves, who are famous for fashioning a lot of the magical items in Norse mythology, including Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, as well as a number of swords and a throne and all sorts of stuff, the dwarves know that this is magical, and they know that it has powers, and they need to kind of imbue her with the powers to be able to wield it, right? So the dwarves each, they convene and they have this conversation, and they decide that, we have plenty of gold, we have plenty of jewels, that's the stuff our work is made of, we have all of this, and so we do not need, my cat just ate part of this, we do not need additional riches. So in order for you to take this necklace, what we need for you to do is to sleep each night for the next 4 nights while we finish it with each one of us. So they knew it was going to take 4 more days to complete the necklace, and they said, so for each of the next 4 nights, we need you to sleep with us. So the first night, she's watching as North, the dwarf whose name is North, is finishing up the chain. So the chain on the necklace, is one of the major parts. It's what holds it all together. And so he's finishing up the links on the chain and making sure that it's all complete and solid. And she watches him as he works, and she's just really into this necklace. And that night they sleep together. And the next day she's to sleep with South. And so South is working on the rubies, and Brisingamen is supposed to have rubies and amber. and gold. Those are the key elements of the necklace itself. This necklace here is one that I made in honor of Brisingamen. I made it myself. I'm not a dwarf. It's not magical. However, the idea was to kind of evoke the story. So these are rubies. Of course, not the high end kind, but still, these beads are made of ruby. And so the South was working on the rubies, and he was making sure all the facets were clean and beautiful, and setting them in their settings in the gold, and making sure that they glistened and gleamed in the firelight. That night, she slept with South after he finished his part of the necklace. The following day, she was to sleep with West, and West was working on the amber. And so the yellow and gold amber, which can be made very clear and very beautiful and sparkling, has kind of a fire, an internal fire-like aspect to it. And what she did with West then is watch him as he's figuring out all of the various pieces and the facets and setting them in their types, in their seats, and making sure everything is secure and that it glows with an inner fire in all of the gems. The next one that she slept with was East, and East was in charge of the clasp, and the clasp is both the trickiest part to do as well as the most important part. You can't put it on and take it off without a clasp. So East is working on the clasp of the necklace, and that night she sleeps with him, and after that together they gift her the necklace. And so she takes Brisingamen, and she is very rarely ever seen without it. She is almost always wearing it. However, the magic that it imparts is that it makes her irresistible to all men. She's irresistibly beautiful. She cannot be denied. Her every wish is their command. She becomes the most beautiful woman, and she's already the goddess of beauty, but she becomes completely irresistible. No one can deny her. And this is a little bit peeving to the gods themselves, and it makes Loki really, really jealous. And so Loki, the Norse trickster god, is like, I want to have that power. I want to be able to win everybody over with just my beauty, and I know it's that new necklace, and I'm going to steal it from her. So because she's irresistible and unbelievably powerful, he can't just like go up and take it off of her neck. So because he's a trickster, he turns into a fly, and he waits until she's asleep, and he flies into her room as a fly, as a house fly. And he gets to her, and she's laying on the clasp. The clasp is underneath her neck. She's still wearing it, and it's clasped still around her neck. So he turns into a flea, and he bites her on the cheek so that she rolls over. And then he becomes his man form, and he unclasps it, and he runs away. And by the time she wakes up and realizes what has happened, it's long gone. He's long gone. The necklace is disappeared. So she asks Heimdall for help. Now, the most important things to know about Heimdall are that he has the keenest senses. He has the best, sharpest sight. And in fact, his sight is so good that he can stand in the heavens and see what's happening on Earth. And that's the thing that he can do. So she says, please, will you help me find my necklace? And it's been stolen. So he is also known as the father of man, and he actually runs and manages the bridge between the worlds. And that bridge is the rainbow. In some ways, he's kind of a sun god. He's known to be very shining. He's known to be, very bringing of fertility, which makes him a really good kind of counterpart to Freyja in this story. The other thing about him is that he then creates kind of a bridge between the worlds of gods and the worlds of men. And so when he goes down to Midgard, he finds Loki in the form of a seal on a beach wearing the necklace. And it's kind of silly to think of a seal wearing a necklace. However, they have a great battle. And in the end, Heimdall wins the battle and wins back the necklace for Freyja and returns it to her. And for the rest of her stories, she's wearing her necklace. However, the deal is with Heimdall and Freyja that at Ragnarok, at the end of the world, in terms of the Norse gods' lives, what is going to happen is that Loki and Heimdall are going to battle again, and they're going to do it in Midgard in seal form once more. All Heimdall asks is that he can wear the necklace for that final battle, and Freyja agrees to these terms. So this necklace becomes both an irresistible power of Freyja's for her own growth and her own beauty and love and war goddess kind of energy. It also helps with Heimdall's story because as kind of that mediating sun factor, it gives him that extra boost of fertility, life, and death as a part of his final battle with Loki at Ragnarok. So though Valentine's Day is often, romance and flowers and cards, I wanted to bring in the jewelry. I also wanted to bring in a really lovely love goddess. Aphrodite has a girdle that does the same exact thing as this necklace Brisingamen does. It renders her completely irresistible to men. I believe that both Norse and Greek have shared roots, specifically in the Sumerian myth. And Inanna also wears necklaces and girdles and various vestments and jewelry. We don't have any specific thing in either the Epic of Gilgamesh or the story of Inanna that actually tell us that her girdles and necklaces and stuff imbue her with the power of being irresistible. However, as a goddess of love and war and life and death, it's entirely likely that this necklace actually comes from an earlier myth. So I hope you have a wonderful Valentine's Day. I will pause just for a moment now that the story is over and offer a bit of a interpretation of the meaning of the story, because one of the things that gets misinterpreted, and one of the reasons why this story doesn't get retold very often among the Norse mythology, is because of the social mores, the sexual mores. Sometimes it gets changed because of Christianity, but really the Norse didn't have the same concepts of fidelity and of, monogamy as we have. And so her sleeping with the dwarves was not seen as some sort of moral failing until the advent of Christianity. More importantly, dwarves in Norse mythology in specific, as well as in most Arthurian legends, so think about this in terms of Tolkien as well, all of those dwarves represent elements and subjects of the unconscious. So in her sleeping with the four directions, dwarves named North, South, East, and West, she is actually getting to know all four directions and all compass points of her own unconscious. And if we interpret it in that way, of course, having that kind of deep self-knowledge in all directions of your own unconscious is going to make you irresistible to others. It's going to make you powerful, and it's going to make you very beautiful. So I believe that is the meaning behind the story. I don't usually try to give like the parable meaning. However, it gets so twisted that meaning in particular is very important to me. I feel like it's an important aspect of the story. I think it's also a really important part of telling a story about something that imbues beauty, right? That self-knowledge is a really intricate and intrinsic part of beauty. So I hope you enjoyed this story. Let me know if you like the setup. Let me know if you like the arrangement, the props, the cats being crazy. And if you would like more like actual quotes from the Eddas. This story is actually in the Eddas. However, what I will tell you about the Eddas is that they were written long after they were actually myth. And they were written by a priest with an overlay of Christianity on top of it. So any of those moral changes, as well as any of those tidbits that make it a little bit richer, often get left out in the ways that they're telling it. I actually found the name of the dwarves in a fairy tale book. It was a book of fairy tales that just happened to have a Norse mythology retelling that named the four dwarves, and the names were the compass points. And that was like a giant aha moment for me. So you definitely have to crowdsource some of these materials and make sure you're getting them from multiple places, because just a single source that's written down by a monk that is a Christian is going to change the overall story. And it's a good idea to find multiple versions of the same story to really understand what's going on there. All right, I hope you have a wonderful Valentine's Day. Thank you.